Okay, so you're ready to dive into a better way to design complex systems. We're talking about ditching those clunky design tools and using code instead.
Yeah.
Today's deep dive is all about Mermaid and Plant UML.
These tools are about bringing that efficiency we love about code into how we visualize things. So we're talking about like writing plain text descriptions, right?
Right.
And then boom, you've got these professional looking diagrams.
It's wild. And the article we're looking at today uses this really cool example. So like imagine you're building an event registration system
Okay.
and you're using GitHub Copilot chat.
Right.
And you say something like, I need a flow chart for event registration. Users can view events, they select one, they register, and then they get a confirmation.
So Copilot Chat will actually generate the mermaid code right there in front of you. You just describe the logic. You don't have to drag and drop any boxes or anything like that.
That's so cool. And then to actually see these diagrams, you can use tools like the Mermaid Preview extension and VS Code.
Yeah.
And the article even linked to a live editor so you can like actually play with it.
Oh.
You ever use one of those?
Yeah, those are super helpful to be able to see your code come to life, basically, in real time. And,
Yeah.
and you know, it's not just about flowcharts. Mermaid's great at those, but for more complex diagrams, you know, Plant UML is really good too.
Okay.
Like ER diagrams, you know, for your databases.
Right, right.
Or class diagrams for, you know, object-oriented programming.
Now, I know some people listening might be thinking, what even are those?
Mm-hmm.
Just quick reminder, ER diagrams show you how different things in a database are related, like customers and orders.
Yeah.
And class diagrams, they do the same thing, but for objects in your code.
Exactly. And what's so elegant about both Mermaid and Plant UML is how seamlessly they fit into a developer's workflow. The article calls this diagrams as code.
Diagrams as code. Okay, so that sounds like kind of a big deal. So tell me more about why this is such a game changer.
Well, imagine this. Your diagrams are now a part of your code base.
Right.
So they're subject to the same version control and collaborative practices as your actual code.
So no more confusion about what version is the most up to date.
Exactly. It brings so much more clarity and organization to a project, especially those large, complex projects.
And the article mentions that you can embed these diagrams right into your GitHub Markdown files.
It's awesome. For technical teams, this changes the game in terms of communication and collaboration. You open up a documentation file and you see these nice and clean diagrams sitting right next to the code. It just makes understanding the bigger picture so much easier.
And this isn't just for software design, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this goes way beyond just building apps.
Absolutely. Visualizing process flows for businesses, creating system architectures for networks, even using it in data analysis to present findings. There's really no limit to what you can do.
This is where it gets really interesting. What are some other ways that this diagrams as code approach, using tools like Mermaid and Plant UML, can really benefit teams in the real world?
Let's consider this. Let's consider like a team working on this big complex software project.
Right.
Traditionally, keeping track of all the diagrams and making sure everyone on the team is on the same page, that could be a real pain. Yeah. But with this diagrams as code approach, any team member can make changes to a diagram, commit that change, and everybody else sees it right away.
So we're talking about having just one single source of truth.
Yeah. And because those diagrams live right alongside the code, they become part of the project's history.
That's cool.
You can see how the design has changed over time.
Oh, wow.
You can even revert back to older versions if you need to.
Oh, that's handy.
Or even create like branches to try out different design ideas visually.
That version control aspect is something the article really hits on, especially when you think about it with tools like GitHub Copilot Chat.
Yeah.
I mean, just the idea that I could describe what I want in a diagram and have like AI actually generate the code for me, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, and it makes it so much faster and so much more accessible. You know, not everyone's comfortable writing Mermaid or Plant UML code from scratch.
Right.
But with AI helping out, you don't really have to be.
That's awesome.
You can just focus on what you want to show in the diagram, you know, the connections you want to make, and let the AI handle the technical stuff.
It's like having your own personal diagramming assistant, which frees you up to be more creative. You know, you're not hung up on the little details of the code. You're thinking big picture.
Exactly.
I bet this is super helpful for people who are new to these tools or maybe don't have a super strong coding background.
Yeah, for sure. And as AI gets even better, we can expect even more from it, even more help.
I can't even imagine.
Imagine describing a really complex software architecture, just saying it out loud, and having the AI just generate this detailed plant UML diagram
Whoa,
with all the classes, the relationships, even the methods, all done for you.
that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It really feels like we're on the edge of this huge change in how we think about software design and really documentation as a whole, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about making things look pretty.
No.
We're talking about better collaboration, being on the same page, and just working more efficiently at every step.
You got it. And it's important to remember that this goes way beyond software development, too.
Right.
Like this coming together of AI and visual communication and all these collaborative tools, it has the power to really transform any field that needs to communicate complex information clearly.
So we're talking about things like architecture, engineering, even education.
Yeah, anywhere you need to explain a system or a process, these tools can be game changers.
It's so true. Like imagine a teacher being able to whip up a diagram to explain a historical timeline or some complex scientific process.
Right.
Or an architect collaborating with clients on building designs, like in real time.
Exactly. The possibilities are really exciting.
It really highlights how important clear communication is no matter what you do. But for someone listening who might be feeling a little overwhelmed, they're excited about all of this, but they're not sure where to start, what would you recommend?
That's a great question. I think the best place to start is just pick one, Mermaid or Plant UML,
Okay.
and just try it out. Their websites have really good documentation, tutorials. There are even those live editors where you can play with the code, see what it looks like without having to install anything.
It's all right there at your fingertips.
Exactly.
And don't forget about those AI tools we were talking about,
Right.
Those could be super helpful if you hit a roadblock or just to get a feel for what's possible. You don't need to be a coding master.
And once you've got the hang of it, think about how it could work for you. Is there something you usually do with a flow chart that could be easier or clearer?
Right.
Or maybe there's a chunk of code you've been trying to explain and it just needs like a visual aid to really click.
It's like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
1,000 lines of code. And don't be afraid to start small. Even if it's just a simple diagram to show a coworker, it's a good way to get comfortable and start seeing those benefits.
As we're wrapping up our deep dive today, is there one big takeaway you want to leave with our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway here is that we're entering this new era where sharing complex information, even really complex information, is just getting easier and easier.
It's a good thing.
It is. And tools like Mermaid and Plant UML, especially when you combine them with AI, they're really breaking down those barriers and helping us close that gap between an idea and actually understanding it.
And that's what it's all about. So whether you're a developer, a designer, a teacher, or just someone who wants to get their ideas across, keep exploring these tools, keep experimenting.
Exactly.
Because who knows what amazing tools and techniques are coming next.